So it's my honor to introduce Gedan de Gelo, Mike Mitchell, who's going to open this gathering circle with a Thanksgiving address. And those of you who don't know Mike, he's one of the most respected First Nations leaders in Canada. And he was born in Akwesasne and raised by a traditional family, and you just heard he speaks his own language and is involved in the community at a spiritual political level. So, Mike?
I'll start by wishing everyone a happy midwinter. And maybe before I start, I'd like to explain what midwinter means to Haudenosaunee. A long time ago, all the nations of the different Haudenosaunee villages, after they've released their men to hunt for winter food, and they came back, and all the different clans, all the different longhouses would prepare for the cold winter ahead, and they would isolate themselves with their food within their clan longhouses. They would not see each other again till the worst of the winter is over. And sometime in the midwinter, the faith keepers would call for people to get together. And so it was about from the fall until midwinter. Everybody pretty well kept pretty much in their own longhouses. And so during that period, things would have happened. Some people would have passed on, new babies would have been born, and the sharing of whatever food is left from during the winter, everybody would bring, and they all get together. And so they would start their new cycle, and it's called a midwinter celebration. And in that new cycle, everything would be renewed. Their medicines would be renewed. The young ones would receive their names. The elders would be honored. Thanksgiving songs would be sung to acknowledge all living creatures of the land. All of creation would be acknowledged. And so sometimes a whole week would go by, and they'd take each day, they would reserve one day exclusive for a specific purpose. And so this is where they called the big heads would come, and they'd sing their sacred songs, and they would open by renewing the ashes, take the old ones out and put new ashes of the fire in place, and indicating the medicines are renewed. People would take portions of that for their medicine, and they would take it back to their lodges. But in the renewal, they would sing their song, cross up between the two wood stoves, or the two fires. Today it's two wood stoves. And in celebrating the renewal, everything is renewed. You renew of relations between them, their families, their individuals. The men would sing their individual chants, thanksgiving to the Creator. The women would do their dance, the women's dance. And the young ones would idolize the old one, and they all had their individual chants. And they would show the adults what they have learned. And by way of songs of thanksgiving, chants that they learned from their elders, and they would sing it before everyone. And after they sing their song, they would acknowledge the Creator in the center floor. And all in their own language, they would offer words of thanksgiving. Thanksgiving to Mother Earth, to the land, to the waters, to the air, to everything that gives us life. And then this would be good practice for them, for one day they'll be asked to do the Thanksgiving address. And so it's all good training for young ones. And the faith keepers would have all the foods prepared, and the medicine people, the speakers, the songs, they would organize all that. So for people to come together, it's a whole week of very spiritual, positive things that would be shared. And so this is what's coming up for us. I think January 25th, obviously will start, and we'll be joining all the other lounge houses throughout the Confederacy. And my role as faith keeper would be to do all those things, to give speeches of encouragement, of acknowledgement, join with the other faith keepers, preparing of food, of songs, of activities. And so that's what would go on. And in each individual activity would be all about thanking the Creator, thanking the spirit guardians, thanking the elders, enjoying life that has been given us, renewal. Everything is about renewal. We start a new cycle. And so with these words, I will say them, a fast version in Mohawk of Thanksgiving for all these things. When I got the so wet, Tuniga, good, and do I got the road. Ne, and do I get up, that you don't hold ne, so we are this. Now just got to oh yeah. So thank you, Nunsuru. Don't know who I don't, and you will do your thing on Jack. Now, Jenny will get to hike. Ne, it's in the sun on Hunja. She got Negarunya. She on Jat, she got no quartz. You know, I got you, I don't hike. She got her run. But you don't go, you can't done it down. One and egg, and you go out, I go gazette, down in the hike. Down on anything in the gara, and a sky tea sut, a scotch it over cheer, you can echo gara. Down on the road, there, Kairi, you go out. Down on there, till you can't go on. Kairi, you good. There, why you don't, so we are this. There got in an edit in Harat. Down on the road, there is not got a yard, down near it, to the Nactalagwani, there, so we are this. There got in so we did the road. Scotty one again. Did you know? I'll be going to there one you go. Today, as all of us walk the land, we offer our thanks to the Creator for seeing a new day. We thank the Creator for the health and well-being of our individual selves, of our families, of our communities, and of our nation. We thank Him for being able to walk the land on Mother Earth. We thank Him for the medicines. We thank Him for sharing the land with all the other creation of life, for the bird life, for the animal life, that are all sacred, for all the medicines that have been made available to us to use, for the four winds, for the thunders, for our grandmother moon, for our elder brother sun, and for the stars and beyond. Everything that gives us life in creation, we acknowledge. And we are humble in thanking all of creation, for we're only a part of it. And as we share and as we walk the land, share everything with each other, we are grateful for this day as we approach our midwinter ceremonies. And that whole time our people gather to offer, it's called a renewal of cycle. We start a new cycle. And so with these thoughts, we feel very good in celebrating our life with one another, with the land, with the nation, with the elders, and for all these things, we're grateful. And those words open today's meeting. And in the renewal, we look to the Creator and say, for everything that I have done, good or bad, I put Him before you, Creator. I'm thankful for have come as far in life as I have. And if there's anything that I have done wrong, I would like to renew going forward and start my renewal process between me and the Creator. I acknowledge everything that is given us life. I acknowledge the medicine properties. I acknowledge all the elders in our nation. And I acknowledge all the young ones coming up. For our language and our ceremonies always reminds us to be thankful for what we have and always share everything that will help our people, whether it's medicine, food, all our thoughts. And so these are the words that opens your meeting today.
Yeah, we'll go, Mike. So thank you very much. It was good words. I think, Paulette, are you there?
I am here.
Okay, you've got your, okay, there you are.
There I am.
So I'd like to introduce Dr. Paulette Tremblay. He's the CEO for the First Nations Education Administrators Association for some opening words. Paulette.
I Sego Scano. First, I'd like to thank Mike Mitchell for his powerful words and for always reminding us that we're just a small part of the whole when we're talking about Mother Nature, when we're talking about our people, when we're talking about our families, when we're talking about our nation, when we're talking about all the elements that are part of our existence and still following the original instructions. So, Nyago, for that, Mike. As always, you've shared and given us new insight into being thankful and grateful and for all that is provided and being willing to share those gifts with others to help them become and achieve and to and make the place we live in more beautiful and more full of love and more full of joy and peace. And so when I started at First Nations Education Administrators Association, I I was so impressed by our vision, mission, and values statement because our values statement says we have to acknowledge and give thanks for every First Nation, for every person, because every First Nation is diverse. We are not the same. The over 600 First Nation communities that have been created through the Indian Act and through the Department of Indian Affairs, which is now Indigenous Services Canada and Crown Indigenous Relations Canada. Those two departments are now oversee First Nations as they exist, and they still are in control. And we are looking to find First Nations control of First Nations education. And we say that, well, our values come from our people and from our culture and from our tradition and from our ceremonies. And so we know that every nation is going to be different. And we also know that every nation is inclusive in that we love our people and we want to make their ability to say what they have to say be done in a safe space where they don't feel they're going to be ridiculed or put down, or they feel that they're safe and they can say what's on their mind and they can live and become a valuable community, a valuable member, a valuable individual, sharing his or her gifts and helping others become. And as educators, I think that we focus on that. And we're looking to find how we can be better in our vision statement in how much closer can we be to taking control of First Nations education and in our ways and learning our languages and practicing them. So today, with that in mind, we are so honored and delighted to have Frances Brown, and she's from the Heiltsuk First Nation. I apologize for saying it incorrectly. She's going to tell us about what they do in their community, and she's been doing it for 22 years to offer best practices in adult language revitalization. And they have a program that they've developed. And it can be a model for all communicating in First Nations if they want to take First Nations control and revitalize their language and they have a way that works. She's been working on it a long time with the community. And I asked her, well, how well is that working? She said, well, we evolve, it changes, and it's hard work. If you don't put the hard work in, it doesn't happen. So we all have to, as individuals and as community members of our nation, take responsibility and do the hard work. And it's not easy to do change, to make change. But what we can remember is that we will do it if we're passionate about it, if we care enough about making a difference in who we are and what we do. It's our time to have a voice with reconciliation. Yeah, the law has changed now, and reconciliation gives us a voice to speak about our cultures, to speak about our languages, to make the change into who we are and be examples, be role models. So this is one session, a town hall, where we're going to learn a whole lot today. And I want to say, go in advance to Frances, and I'm thankful and grateful that she's willing to do this, willing to share her gifts with us. Yahweh.
So thank you, Paulette. We'll turn it over to Frances Brown from Heiltsuk Nation.
Alaga mi klanugwa, aklanugwa lat uyalit, du istate, du okoi, du gegeest. Lagachneach bulqua, aklak bulqua lat okoi, du gegeest. Amas gulaks umpa, aklaks umpa lat uyalit, du istate. Heiltsuk kam nugwa, ala nugwa. Heiltsuk Tribal Council. So my name is Alagami, known as Frances Brown. I am a descendant of the Heiltsuk and Kiddishu tribes. My mother's name is Lagachneach, known as Shirley Windsor, knee mason of the Okwait and Gekes tribes. My late father's name is Kamas, known as Charlie Windsor of the Uyalit. Two East State tribes. I am Heiltsuk from Bella Bella, and I work for the Heiltsuk Tribal Council as the Language Revitalization Manager. We are located on the central coast of British Columbia, known as Bella Bella. I have spent over 2 decades revitalizing Heiltsuk and culture for our nation. My previous work experiences have given me hands-on skills in planning, coordinated implementation, and budget management. As an extension of my work over the past 22 years, I have composed songs and choreographed traditional dances. I am a very passionate community activist, and I am a firm believer in lifelong learning. I believe in empowering, motivating, and inspiring new learners to reach their potential. In 2019, I was hired as the Language Revitalization Manager for our nation. I am unwavering in my commitment to improving Heiltsuk programs. My passion to learn new ways of teaching an Indigenous language has afforded exciting and engaging experiences for me, both within and outside of Bella Bella. I have traveled with other community members to share and learn from other experiences in revitalizing Indigenous languages in New Zealand, Squamish Nation, Japan, Ontario, and Chase, BC. Building success off success, these sharing and learning opportunities helped our team create a foundation on which to build strong and vibrant language and cultural programs. With a dedicated team, we have created significant changes in revitalizing I also first for communities and brings building community-based ideas and issues to the attention of First Peoples Cultural Council, and in turn advises the Committee on FPCC programs research, and advocacy. I want to thank Claire for assisting me. She will now play a video.
Language has been one of the key priority house posts, and it's been amazing to see the language authority and the students and our practitioners coming together to bring our language in a really big resurgence into our community.
I've been involved with language revitalization for 19 years. We've come a long way, and this was made possible through Heiltsuk to turn things around and make it right. Through the Language House Post, through federal funds, we have 9 projects, and through BC funds, we have 11. I'm really pleased to share that we operate under a language authority board. We do have a 5-year strategic plan written by Isla Brown, and I use it to guide the projects that I'm working on. We have a lot of language resources that are readily accessible. You can find it on YouTube. We have a language app with First Voices. We also have a Heiltsuk dictionary. We have a urban Heiltsuk Zoom classroom to reach all Heiltsuks no matter where they reside. One thing that I'm really proud of is that we've had, for the first time ever, a 900-hour Heiltsuk adult immersion program. This year, we have 10 graduates. We want to create language families for a family to have more than just the children learning. We want the parents learning in the language room, and then we want the children learning in the language nest. We're going to carry on with other programs, silent speakers program, those that know the language but no longer speak it. We want to have a safe place for them to learn. And I'm really excited about all the opportunities that we have now, and very grateful to the negotiators for securing the funds for us. Through Heiltsuk, we're going to have our first ever Heiltsuk building. I'm fortunate enough to see a dream become a reality for those that worked on language revitalization before me. My mentors, they paved the way for us. And we do all of this work for our future generations. It was very well put by Jessica Brown. We don't only want our language to live, we want our language to live in us again. We're stronger together. Our plan is to work collaboratively with all of the language stakeholders in our community. I want to thank the hereditary and elected leadership for supporting the initiatives. I want to acknowledge the elders that we work with, and I'd also like to acknowledge our young fluent speakers, Brett and Lori. Through their work, all of this work is possible. So I just wanted to share a little bit about the Heiltsuk process. We are in reconciliation with the federal and provincial government, and Heiltsuk means to turn things around and make it right. When we first started negotiating in the reconciliation process, the elders recognized right away what reconciliation means. And they said that we didn't do anything wrong, and they wanted our own language to define what the process would be. And they chose Heiltsuk, and that means to turn things around and make it right again. And we used the language house post is symbolic to us because it tells of our history. And we chose to use a house post so that it speaks for itself that we're building We're taking a new approach, building together, in this case, a language house post where the government we're going to work side by side and not the government dictating to us. So I'm grateful for all the funds that we have because it's allowed for our nation to take a holistic approach to for language revitalization initiatives, and everything everything connects and is so important. So I'll go through what has been key for us as a nation. Support from our joint leadership and community. Joint leadership to us means our elected leadership and our hereditary leadership. Government funding, community engagement, sector groups, community meetings, on and off reserve. Our Guyalas, the laws of our ancestors, and that relates to our ceremonies, our connection to the land, sea, and resources, our songs, our creation stories, our dances, our history. Language Authority Board to have full jurisdiction, terms of reference, a framework and strategic plan, policy development, governance manual, success by success networking, site visits with other successful communities, dedicated language space, young people who have learned the target language and are fluent. We've done some pilot projects and it was 3 by 3 by 3 by 3. 3 days, 3 hours, 3 instructors, 3 months. Those pilot projects were really important in us carrying on our work and going forward. Immersion opportunities to create language families, place-based learning, going out into our territory and in learning the history, curriculum development, multimedia, language resources, social media, audio and visuals to promote language work, a holistic approach, Heiltsuk elder, quoting the Heiltsuk elder from womb to tomb, so lifelong learning, partnerships with educational institutes. In our case, it's with Simon Fraser University and the University of British Columbia. It is necessary for us to hire a linguist, dedicated staff, teacher training and planning, learn methodologies that are engaging, inclusive, and fun, early childhood education, so 5 developmental stages of early childhood education, and a shared vision. All of these are important in revitalizing the language. And as I said, everything goes hand in hand. And I have also recognized that only we can save our languages. Obviously, we need the funding for it, but we have to do the hard work. Next. So through the house, the Heiltsuk Language House Post, these are the projects that we're working on. These ones that have check marks on there means that it's either done or it's in progress. So for 401, we have a language strategy. And in that strategy, we had a 5-year strategic plan. We're working on a governance manual. And we did a site visit to Brantford, Ontario for the root word methodology. And we plan to go to Hawaii to learn about their language nest and their language programs. Project 402 is Language Authority Operation. Under that project, the language manager and executive assistant were hired. And we have a Language Authority Board operations and jurisdiction. 403 we hired was specific for a lead educator. 404 was expand language programs, and we hired an educator and educational assistant. 405 we have an urban language program. So we want our language to be accessed to any of our Heiltsuk, no matter where they reside. So we have a Zoom classroom and hired a manager, instructor, and a mentee. 406 is post-secondary. So right now, we are, as I said, we're in partnership with SFU. We have a protocol agreement where we certify our teachers through their courses that are offered. And then we will also have a research protocol agreement with UBC, and they'll help us with what they can in our 5-year strategic plan. So creating those relationships are really important in carrying the work forward. 407, we're creating a language app with Okagi. Next slide. 408, we have a master apprentice program. And we have 2 mentees working with 2 elders. And project 409, we have a language building that will be going up. We'll start on March 1st. So I have funding from the federal government and the provincial government. Obviously, there's not enough funds. It's about 1.5. And our building, we need an additional 2.7 million. So we're still looking for funding so that we don't have to do any cutbacks in our proposed design for the language building. So project 451, community language team. So we hired an assistant manager and a teacher aide. And we're also training them in areas that will help them do better on their job. So that's also important. 452, we have a language nest and a prenatal program. We have done a pilot on our language nest for 3 months. We learned a lot, and one of the things that we had to do was create a policy. And we have a prenatal project. We have 5 couples where we've done some research. It said that babies can hear while they're in the womb at 3 months. So our couples we purchased belly buds for them, and the belly buds are placed on the belly, and the babies were exposed to our songs and our language through the audio resources that we have. And we continue to learn about why these things are so important. And it says even in the womb, the baby starts to form an identity and personality. And I was like, wow, when I learned this, because already we're helping a baby in the womb to self-identify and, develop their own personality. And 453 is capacity development for elders and instructors. So we have professional development training for elders and all our 0 to 6 programs in our community. And what I've learned through a mentor apprentice program is that because our fluent speakers are they were taught through natural form of transition. They weren't taught how to teach language. So through my experience, I've learned that I had to teach my mom how to teach me. And the way I was able to do that was because I learned different methodologies like TPR1, which is action-based, action and command-based learning. I've learned TPR2, which is storytelling. I learned Dr. Gray morning methodology, and I've also learned Where Are Your Keys methodology, which is American Sign Language. So that really helped me there. And that's what we're using to help our elders teach us. We're creating the Heiltsuk app. And as I said, we're going to hire a linguist. Next. We have additional contracts, so more projects. And we're going to hire a digitization manager. We have a digitization technician and an assistant. And through other source funding with First Peoples Cultural Council, we had a braided knowledge project where we mentored the youth. And it was, even though it was a 1 month project, it was very expensive. And we did some cost sharing with, with other entities in our community, Heiltsuk Tribal Council, Social Development, our Resource Department, our Restorative Justice, Heiltsuk Language House Post, Economic Development House Post, and Heiltsuk Horizon. We also do projects with First Peoples Cultural Council, First Voices, and digitization. They fund part of that, and we had some funding from our Mid-Coast First Nations Training Society and the Downer Foundation. And as I said, we have a protocol agreement with Simon Fraser University, and the one with UBC is in progress. Next. And so project 454 is the teacher education program. We hope to have offer a course in Heiltsuk in September of 23, and we need to go through our language authority board for approval. And 455, we have a full-time adult immersion, and we have, it's 17 students, not 18. Project 456 is our healing initiatives, and part of the youth mentorship was covered with these funds, and we had 16 youth participating, and we had a Heiltsuk adult immersion orientation for 2 days, and then we did 4 place-based learning, and it was seasonal. We go out to the territory to learn about our history that surrounds us. This is really important because I spoke to my mom, who is 85, and I'm 64. When we grew up in our community, we did not know that we have a history within our territory. And once I learned about this, I made sure that, the future, the generations going forward will always know the history out there, because we have pictographs, petroglyphs, clam gardens, fish traps, old village sites, so all of these are important, and it's very, it's really the holistic approach in, ensuring that all the history will be passed on from one generation to the next. Our silent speakers program started in September, and we have 3 mentees, 1 lead instructor, project lead who is the instructor, 3 mentees and 5 mentees. Or 3 mentors and 5 mentees, sorry. What's important to understand about this is we have approximately 77 silent speakers, and I reached out to all of them by mail, and I got a response from only 5. And although First Peoples Cultural Council has their own approval on how they would sponsor silent speakers program, I chose not to follow that, and we're using our own funding to support our silent speakers. I felt that was really important, not to dictate to them how to run the program. I felt it was important to give them a voice and tell us how they want to do that. Then they have how they want to start the program was to have lunches together and to listen to the old recorded resources that we have so that they could hear the authentic from there. Our Project 458 curriculum resource development, we're creating a curriculum design team, and we're going to hire, this is where a linguist will assist us as well, because we have so many resources that aren't archived in a way that they're easily accessible, and neither do we have that's been developed where it's teacher ready, and that's where we want to go. Preservation, as I said, we're going to hire a digitization manager, and we also feel it's important to have a trained librarian and an archivist. Next. Next slide, please. Lunch meet Lanoa Klaiaila. We are 2021 to 2023. You know, these are some that we've been able to achieve. So we had 10 graduates from our Heiltsuk adult immersion program, and they all have their Heiltsuk language proficiency certificate. And in 21-22, 6 chose to sunboard, but they also wanted to go into year, the other with a year 2 cohort. So while they were waiting, we had 2. We gave them an opportunity to carry on with language, and 2 of them were assigned as teachers for adult immersion, and we put 4 of them in a language nest, not 2. So in 21-22, we had 13 graduates, and they attained their Heiltsuk language proficiency certificate. And then we did the developmental training for our Heiltsuk entities. We had created Heiltsuk names for Kansut, and the names were used for signage. In 21, we also created QR codes, and they're put up in our Bella Bella Band store. We created a language resource binder, and it's distributed to all of our Heiltsuk stakeholders. In 22-23, our FNLP program changed to INLP and adult, and it's the adult immersion diploma program year. It says year 3, but it's actually year 1 and year 2 coming into year 3, and they're doing the second year program, and there's 17 students altogether. And we continue to update our resource binder. And through our First Peoples Council contracts in 2018-21, we created 30 books, posters, and flashcards, and they're all culturally relevant, meaning that they have our Heiltsuk art and any of the animals, what have you, in our territory are included in the artwork. And we also created a Heiltsuk, a book for our big house opening. And a lot of that is shown on the video that you just saw. We created 4 rhythm and rhyme videos. We created 5 rhythm and rhyme audio recordings, and we're working on editing the videos. To illustrate 5 stories from, and illustrate 5 stories from a workshop we did with the language stakeholders. Next, please. Next slide. Carrying on with our contracts, we also are creating posters with our children's song series. And it also has culturally relevant artwork on our posters. Through FPCC, we have funding secured for what they refer to as Pathways to Language Vitality. And we employed a youth empowerment worker, youth mentee, Heiltsuk teachers, an elder fluent speaker. And then we did the 3-month pilot project. And all for the 2 teachers, 2 youth mentees, 1 fluent speaker, 6 toddlers who were 3 to 4-year-olds. And we did the braided knowledge in August of 22. So strong Heiltsuk youth. And we had 4 youth mentors and 2 adult 2 Heiltsuk mentors, and we had 16 mentees. And our First Voices app is funding is through First Peoples Cultural Council again. And we have an administrator, a recorder, and 4 fluent speakers. Next slide. So these are some of the challenges that we have. So we have 9 fluent speakers who are 80 plus and their health is declining. We have a shortage of trained staff. Capacity building is paramount right now, and it does take time. We have full-time staff for our language nest that we are planning for September 23, 24 to June 24, and we have no infrastructure, but we're going to go ahead with the planning. We're 2.2 million short, or 2.7 million short for our language building. Where we're located, it's really the cost for freight really high, and so that's part of the reason why we're short for our language building. Language resources, but we need to develop multi-level and technologically balanced pedagogy. There's no option for on-reserve training, so we literally have to look for someone who might be interested in being an archivist and a librarian who is willing to leave our community to go out and attend university with UBC. We lack a space to record with elders right now. I'm setting up my own home so that elders can be recorded in a place where it's quiet and there's not a lot of interruption. Wage parity has always been an issue. There's a lack of respect for and recognition for language. When it's being taught, it's not recognized as a profession. And in my opinion, I've always believed that it needs to be viewed as like a special education, because when you're teaching a language, not just anybody can come in and sub for you. So, in my experience, whenever we had staff sick, it was really hard to get someone in and expect them to carry on the duties of a language teacher because they just couldn't. So a lot of times it was when any of them were sick, we'd have to play videos, or there was no language learning happening. And we cannot access funds for daycares because of licensing. It goes against our way of life. And that's really, really sad, because it's time for them to decolonize even in licensing and realize that they need to be able to recognize that we've raised all of our children and we know what's best for them, and they cannot deny anymore that our way of life matters for our children. And early childhood education is really important. I was just doing research on that today, and how the first six years is so important in lifelong learning. The Ministry of Education also needs to be on board with how we teach language in the education system. In our community, we're isolated, as I said, and through the Ministry of Education, they're only allowing a half day of language classes, and there's no support for immersion opportunities. And I was a part of this system for 19 years. And it's so frustrating because you cannot, in the 40 years that we've offered this half-hour day of language classes, we did not create any language speakers, and it's simply because there's no immersion opportunities. And what I can say now that we have an adult immersion program, although we didn't create speakers, it allowed for our students to have a really good language base. So they're doing quite well in our language immersion program. That's one thing that I can say that's been positive, but the Ministry of Education needs to be more supportive in creating immersion opportunities. One example is last year and this year, we spoke with our own local school board requesting space for language immersion, and they didn't support us in that. They just said, sorry, we don't have any extra rooms that we can offer for immersion opportunities. And that's really sad. And the other issue that I find is a challenge, we have funding, but there's no long-term funding. We always get 1 year to 3 years. So when that 1 year is up and 3 years is up, we're always like, it gets stressful because you never know if you're going to qualify for more funding again. So we're going to go to our webpage again, and I'm going to show you our iMovies, which are books that were created. And these iMovies are used as tutorials for our parents who are learning language with their children, because we have the books and they're distributed to all parents who have 0 to 6 children. So when they read these books to their children, they can actually have the tutorials to use. So I wanted to share one of them, and you'll note on there, when I say culturally relevant, it has our art forms on there.
Kihula, kihula. Kihula, tulas, ka. Kihula, tulas, ka.
The black bear is running.
Kihula, nanache. Kihula, nanache.
The grizzly bear is running.
Kihula, mohuayache. Kihula, mohuayache.
The cat is running.
Kihula, watayache. Kihula, watayache.
The dog is running.
Kihula, kusilsache. Kihula, kusilsache.
The wolf is running.
Kihula, kanamache. Kihla Kanamhe.
The girl is running.
Kihla Wisamahe. Kihla Wisamahe.
The boy is running.
Kihla Nwaklayas Wisam. Kihla Nwaklayas Wisam.
The man is running.
Kihla Nwaklayas Kanam. Kihla Nwaklayas Kanam.
The woman is running.
Kihla Numasahe. Dulkwaniyahe. Kihla Numasahe. Dulkwaniyahe.
The old man and the old lady are running.
So I just wanted to share that, as I said, they're culturally relevant with Heiltsuk art forms, animals in our territory, and we're using the authentic speakers. And in that book, we switched from singular to plural as well. And the next one is a video of one of our young speakers. It was really, what I found was really important that we recruit the younger fluent speakers so that they could help advance our program because they have so much energy, they're young, and this is their passion in life. And this is Rory Housty. Gui is his traditional name and it means raven. We did we went to do a site visit in North Vancouver, the Squamish Nation, and they learned a methodology called Where Are Your Keys methodology. And it's really important. I found it really important to build success off success, like going to other communities that are successful. And in the Where Are Your Keys methodology, it helps you to remember language and retain it because you're using your left brain and your right brain. You have to think with your brain and be able to do those actions. So we found that this methodology is really helping our students. So we have a lot of videos on here, but because of time, I thought it'd be important to at least share one. Way.
Go through some of our lists. One. Nukwa. Nukutla. Kius. Kis. Us. Nukwa. Nukutla. Kius. Kis. Us. List 2. Misla. Tua. Qersicha. Wala. Tchnoeg. Tchnoeg. Misla. Tua. Qersicha. Wala. Tchnoeg. Apples. Quach limas. Malachdi. Chayim. Nanquimas. Apples. Quach limas. Malachdi. Chayim. Nanquimas. 4. Achstu. Tichstu. Mochstu. Quamstu. Tichelastu. Enzistu. Achstu. Teachst du, mochst du, kwamst du, tegelast du, enziest du, we, masi, mats, dunuchi, las, laoch, wichstui, agwe, masi, mats, dunuchi, las, laoch, wichstui, agwe, we. Kedilchala, damba, kan, eichba, chilpa, muchba, kucha, kedilchala, damba, kan, eichba, chilpa, muchba, kucha, we, ko, ya, gauch, koch, masauch, ko, ya, gauch, koch, masauch, we.
As I said, that's where are your keys methodology. It's proven to be very successful with language retention with our adult learners. Before I left the Bella Bella Community School, we were using it there, and it applies to children as well. So children, youth, adults. It's a really good way to revitalize language. It's another methodology that's worth learning and bringing into a classroom. So I think is it now question and answer there?
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a really interesting language program, and I think it's comprehensive. So there's a lot of work that you've done, and I'm sure people have questions to ask you. So this time, you can either ask questions by raising your hand or just speaking up, or put questions in the meeting chat. I'm going to just check the meeting chat. So we have Kim saying that she's from Curve Lake in Hiawatha, and I think there are two communities that she's talking about getting together to. So there's Kim there. So Kim, ask your question.
I'm wondering if when you take teachers into your school to do the work, the language work, does your teachers have to be certified through the government teacher certification? Or can your language teachers go in without that certificate to teach that language? Do you know what I mean? Do they have to be certified by the government to be able to go into a classroom to teach your language? Is that one of the stipulations for your language revitalization?
So when I worked at the Bella Bella Community School, I was required to have my language proficiency certificate.
Yeah.
And one of the roles that we're going to play as a language authority board was to take full jurisdiction over our language. And one of our roles is to sort of have our authentic speakers play a part in the role of certifying our teachers. So along with SFU, our fluent speakers confirm that, with their understanding that they are ready to teach in the classroom.
Is that with the government certification or your own certification? You take responsibility for that?
Both. So the Ministry of Education has, they have their own guidelines too.
Yeah.
That they have to follow. So it's through SFU and the partnership we have with them in our Language Authority Board that we're able to certify the teachers to teach. And what's been very disheartening is, as I said, they do not recognize it to as equal to that of a teacher.
Yeah.
And that's never sat well with me. The first year I taught, I pretty much was on a salary for basically like a standard teaching certificate. It wasn't in line with a first-year teacher.
Yeah, that's the issue we're having here is we can't get our language speakers into our classrooms because they want the government certification for teachers. So they have to go back to school to get that certification to go into our classrooms to teach our children our language. And it's a big fight. And we've been doing this for years. So thank you.
Thank you. And I understand what you're saying. It's almost like we need to go on an international level to create some movement.
Exactly. We should be allowed to have our language speakers go into a school and speak that language to our children without holding that government paper. That's not who we are. That's not what we believe in, is that government paper that tells us we're good enough to do the teaching. We should be able to have our language speakers go in there without that. And we should be able to do that certificate, not the government.
I certainly agree with you. My experience in the educational system was, for every Indigenous child that goes into the education system, especially in the public schools, they receive more money than we do on reserve. And their focus really should be to teach Indigenous languages rather than them dictating on how we should do things. And, I really believe that, with all the years of experience that I have, that we really need to work together to create some movement and change at an international level for sure.
Big watch. Thank you so much. Agree.
Thanks, Kim. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Mariah?
What kind of methodology for language teachers were being used for teaching? Where your TEAS methodology was one, action-based. What were the others?
So the you broke up a little bit, but I will share the methodologies that we've used. And I just want to share that in my experience, I worked in a language nest. I've worked with primary, intermediate, and high school. And I've used all of the methodologies, the TPR, total physical response, which is action command based. I've used TPR2, which is storytelling. I've used Dr. Gray Morning, And Dr. Gray Morning is Dakota, and he believes that as Indigenous people, we are visual learners. And so he created a methodology, and he refers to skill sets. Skill set 1 is nouns. Skill set 2 is verbs. Skill set 3 is preposition, and using skill set 1 and 2 when you're doing the preposition. Skill set 4 was switching from singular to plural. And then we also learned the where are your keys methodology. And those have been really successful in all of the programs that I taught in. And knowing all those 4 methodologies helped me to stay in the language a lot longer.
So I have a question. So my grandchildren are interested in speaking the language, and but like them or other children, they come home and their parents are not speaking the language. You're talking about adult learning. So why is it important for adults to learn the language?
It's important for adults to learn the language. You know, in our community, we're taking a holistic approach. We want to create language families. For 40 years, our language has been in over 40 years. The language has been in our Bella Bella Community School. Children were learning the language and parents weren't. So we restructured our whole program, and we're now having parents learning and young adults. Some of the young adults aren't even parents yet. So they're already, you know, we're already a step ahead, where before, when their children are born, they'll already understand that they'll already know that we have a prenatal program, we'll have a language nest. So the whole idea of having adults learning is the holistic approach, and to ensure that our language is going to live again, not survive. For all these years, our language has just been surviving. We want it to live in us again. It breathes life into us as hate.
That is really inspiring. I know in getting at ZB, the young people, when they were in school, we asked them how important is learning the language, and it wasn't that important. But as soon as they started having kids, it became suddenly become very important. So I think your young people are a step ahead. So the other question, are there differences in programs that learn the language in a non-immersion environment when you compare it to an immersion environment? And I think you kind of answered that question a little bit about saying you spent 40 years, half an hour a day or a week, and nobody learned the language.
Yes, there's a huge difference. We're really working hard to take a collaborative approach on how we're teaching language. That's why we felt it was important for us to share our resource binder. And we're also sharing, you know, the where we have all our language resources, because when I was in the Bella Bella Community School, our language resources were very limited. And we had no resources like we do now, the iMovies, the videos you saw of Rory Housty. You know, we didn't We didn't have a Heiltsuk app, and we have that now. And although we have a lot of resources, it's not structured. So that's a direction that we're going. And the reason why we have all of our 0 to 6 programs involved when we do the workshops is because we share with them, all of the learning opportunities that we've had. And we want them to know what resources are available. Because there's even baby sign language, and we're working on that as well.
Yeah, all my daughters are teaching the babies how to do sign language, and when they're hungry or they want to eat, you see the little heads. So babies can communicate at a very young age. I was interested in your when you talked about going to 6 nations. I'd be interested in knowing what you learned when you went there, and now you're going to Hawaii. So let me know so I can put an application to go to Hawaii with you. If you go. I'm just kidding, but I think it's important to learn from other Indigenous people what the experience they've had and the successes they've had.
Yes, one thing for sure, when we've done the site visits, is we would spend a week there, and basically we would just go there to observe, and then we'd ask questions and have a get together on the last day. And through those site visits and training that we have done, it's really helped us to be successful in our work. I see Krista Reed is on. Her husband is Heiltsuk as well. He's from Bella Bella, and he's working with his mother's language up in the Yukon. And I want to thank you for correcting me on the SFU, Krista. It's really hard to try and remember everything. But I've also been able to speak with him, and he helped me put a policy together for our adult learners. So the more connections we have, the better off it is. And if you really pay attention to what's working for other communities, it helps you to develop your own program and get better at what you're doing. So that's why I really believe in the site visits.
Yeah, it's so important. We're getting there's lots of comments in the chat saying thank you very much. People are really impressed with the work you're doing in your community, and it's truly inspiring. So we will have this video edited and put on our site. I'm not sure, but usually it takes about a month. But and then the other thing that is in the chat is the link to your website, and you were talking about resources and materials being there, so people can access that material to look at what you're producing. And I think you're right about video, that it's a lot easier today to create that kind of resources for students than it was 5 years ago.
That's for sure. In order to keep our children and youth engaged, we definitely have to stay up with the times.
Are there any other questions? So we'll probably close off in a minute or so. So the question is, okay, that you answered the question about the books. And you got your email there. So I just want to thank you for presenting today. We were really inspired by the work and the commitment that you have put into your own language. I know people across Canada are trying to get back their languages to becoming a living language, which is an interesting terminology, and yeah, we've learned a lot from you today. Thank you, Francis DeGrich. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike Mitchell for closing prayer and some words. Mike?
Yama, what an interesting afternoon. It's something to sit down with each other, exchange thoughts, work that we're all doing. It makes you feel very good inside, you know. I don't know how many people of our communities and nations fully appreciate how important our language is. But I would think that in the last few years, people are beginning to recognize the importance of our people speaking their language, knowing their culture, having respect for ceremonies that were handed down by our ancestors. If anything, from the damages of residential school, government, churches, etc., we've reached a stage where we can look back and say, those were our teachings. It belongs to us. Our ancestors gave us the language, the culture, the ceremonies. We have nothing to be ashamed of. Contrary to the non-natives that advocated we should do away, we no longer have any need for our culture, our languages, our ceremonies. We're now at a plateau where we're saying, no, it is important for our spiritual survival, cultural, language, the definition of who we are. We cannot talk about sovereignty without recognizing that language goes with sovereignty, that our cultural teachings goes with sovereignty. It is the very base, the very foundation. And so all we need to do now is work as hard as possible to share with one another, because we are very few. And the hard work that we all put in, it pays off. The next generation that's coming up, we need to work hard that they are equipped with the strength, the spirit, the knowledge of our ancestors' languages, of their thoughts, even their ceremonies, that we can rejuvenate, rekindle our fires. And so that would be the thought that I would end this meeting with, to congratulate the ones who have worked so hard, and to encourage others that have the technical knowledge to work with our elders. This is most important vision quest that we're on. We know in our side, our spirit inside tells us we must do this work. So I encourage everyone to put their utmost thoughts, whether you have ceremonies, whether you have cultural teachings, but put in your minds, recognize the fact that our language, in whatever form we can teach, we need to support one another. We need to reach out to people who are able to help, whether they be government, foundation, education, community, whatever source it may be. The importance of putting culture, language, our own history, so that it's something that we can all be proud of. We end this meeting on that note and say nyawa to each and every one of you that are on this path. Tunigawanage kadanito.